inspiring lady whose mother was diagnosed, unfortunately, with breast cancer at the age of 36 and passed away at the age of 44. And the loss of her beautiful hair was devastating to her. As cancer patients, we can all relate to this, right? And so, as a result of this experience, this lady, her family, actually her dad and her brother, set about improving on a system that could prevent hair loss while undergoing chemotherapy all the way in the United Kingdom. And so the Paxman cooling cap system, which is a global leader in scalp cooling, has treated more than 100,000 patients worldwide and in 50 countries. So Claire Paxman, who is the brand ambassador and director of global training, will share her story and tell us all about how this system works, the efficacy, what's next in terms of research, and trying to improve outcomes. So, without much ado, let me welcome the amazing Claire L. Paxman to our show. Welcome, Claire. Lovely to see you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for having me and for such a wonderful introduction. Wow. Thank you for that.
Oh, wow. All deserving, all deserving. You're just amazing, and what your family has done. Honestly, it's anyway, we'll go into it. So with that, I know you have so much to do. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Otherwise, I could go on and on talking with you.
You're fine.
Yeah. Please introduce yourself and the Paxman story and legacy, please.
Of course I will. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, my name's Claire Paxman, as mentioned. I'm the brand ambassador and director of global training here at Paxman, but I'm also one of the family members of the founders. And Paxman Scalp Cooling developed all because of my beautiful late mum, who you gave us a lovely introduction to before. So she was diagnosed with breast cancer, age 36. And the prospect of her losing her hair did actually absolutely terrify her, like many people experience when they're first diagnosed. And so she did actually use an older primitive type of scalp cooling and cold cap system, because it's been around for a very, very long time. But as I say, it was an older primitive type, and it wasn't very effective at all. And in fact, the first time that her hair actually started to fall out was the first time she cried. She didn't cry when she was diagnosed. She didn't cry when she was, had to have surgery. The first time she cried is when a beautiful, naturally curly hair, a big part of her, started to fall out. And she actually said to me, "Come on, Claire, come and help me cut this off." So aged 14, I stood in the bathroom with her with those orange-handed scissors from the kitchen and cut all of her beautiful hair off. And that for me is one of the worst things that I've ever had to do. But what gives me the inspiration and the drive to want to make a difference and help people, as I have done in many capacities over the years. And that goes the same for my brother, my wonderful brother, Richard Paxman, who's now our CEO and the huge driver and inspiration as well into the business. But then also, and more importantly, my dad, my wonderful dad, Glenn Paxman, who is our founder and chairman, and saw just completely and utterly how distressed his wife was about losing her hair. So already a successful businessman, an entrepreneur, he decided that he wanted to know more information about this scalp cooling. What is it? What were you trying to do, and why hasn't it worked? And when he understood the principles of that you need to reduce the scalp temperature and maintain it at that temperature, which all of the methods were failing to do. That was when, if you liked, if it was a cartoon, Grace, he would have had that ding, the light bulb moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Where, yeah, he just thought, well, this is what I've been doing. So as a family, we have a large background in refrigeration, so cooling liquids in the brewing industry. My granddad actually developed the first type of, developed an ice bank beer cooler back in the 1950s. So we've been cooling liquids and have that expertise and knowledge. And that's where he adapted it, you know, he adapted that expertise and knowledge in developing the very first Paxman system. And that was with the help of his brother, my lovely uncle, Neil, who again is what he doesn't know about refrigeration, I think isn't worth knowing. And they set about developing the Paxman system, and we got medical device approval in 1997. And that's when we got our first systems in. But, you know, we had a lot of learning to do, because it was a medical device that we had very limited oncology background and expertise, but that's where we've learned as we've gone on. And now in 2022, we are the leading global experts in scalp cooling and in cold cap. We're on our 4th generation system, our 4th generation caps. Everything that we do, we reinvest to make it simpler for the medical staff, for the clinicians, the nurses, and the people on the ground who are providing the treatment. We make sure that we try and make the systems as simple to use as possible, and the caps, which is the most integral part of the system. You must have a good fitting cap in order for it to be as successful as possible. So we're constantly looking and changing that. Yeah, and as you say, it's actually over 60 countries that we're distributing to now worldwide.
I don't want you to gloss over that, because I want to actually for you to expatiate on these wonderful parts of this story and what you're doing. So how long, you mentioned the 50s, so you've like been around ever since the 50s, or when did you actually start?
Yeah, so not in the medical device company. So that was back in the day on my granddad's side of the business. So in terms of Paxman scalp cooling, yeah, we've been going since the late 90s, and we got medical device approval in 1997. Then sort of 2000 is when we then got some VC venture capitalist investment, which enabled us to better the system and invest in clinical data as well. But it's sort of then really from 2010 onwards where we've really sort of ramped up on our export and exporting to different countries. Again, our 3rd generation system came out then, and working behind the scenes then as well in order for us to gain FDA clearance for us to be able to market and provide our treatment in the US. And it was in April 2017, so coming up to our 5-year anniversary, April 2017, that we got FDA clearance in the US. And but all of this, the growth of the business for us allows us to reinvest, and because we've got a real passion about improving the effectiveness of this, and also looking at different other applications of where we can help cooling with the other side effects of chemotherapy.
So where is your factory located actually? And, you know, in terms of, I know, let's think outside the box now. What is how has our demographic, I would say our demographic, because I'm also a cancer survivor, you know. So how have they keyed into this innovation?
So I'll answer your first question first. So we're based in Huddersfield in Yorkshire, a lovely part of the world, obviously in the UK, but again, our infrastructure, we are global. So we do manufacture all of our systems here in the UK and ship them all around the world. Yeah, but as I say, we do have offices set up particularly in the US. We have a an infrastructure set up around there, and in different countries, or it's a distributor network that we have as well. So in terms of your question about what you said about
demographics,
the
how have they
demographics.
keyed into it? Because
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
an amazing innovation,
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, with the amount of cancer diagnoses that there are on an annual basis, and the fact that that is growing, that's shown us that there is a necessity to have our product available globally and worldwide. And it is actually one of our ethoses, is that no matter who you are, where you are, your ethnicity, your gender, your cancer type, that you do get access to Paxman and to scalp cooling. And that's certainly one of our drivers, and one thing that we're really, really aiming for, because we know that, and it's great that it's now been recognised as a level of cancer care, of supportive cancer care. It's not just about giving you those drugs to treat that cancer or to cure that cancer. It's about managing all those other debilitating side effects to allow people to live with their cancer diagnosis. And that's what we're working on as well, and that's what we're really, really proud of, and to be working with some really prolific people within the research, and also within oncologists and specialists around the world, in order for us to achieve this.
Absolutely. And it's, like you rightly said, supportive cancer care, taking into consideration the also mental well-being of women who have, had to lose their hair, aside losing other pieces of flesh here and there during cancer surgery and all that. So if they could save at least one part, for their mental well-being, then keying into this is actually of the utmost essence, so it's
absolutely,
wonderful.
Grace. Yeah, and I think that's something that can sometimes be a little bit overlooked, is that when people are, it's the most common feared side effect of chemotherapy is hair loss. Unbelievably, there's 10% of people will actually refuse or request a less efficacious treatment in order to keep the hair, and it's just that it gives, people lose their privacy. They, like you say, it affects their mental health. It's that different person looking back at them in a mirror, and obviously it's another outwardly visible sign of the disease as well, and can affect interpersonal relationships. We find a lot of people's drivers to want to keep their hair often and not always about their own, it's about themselves, but actually their family or their outer circle. So they want to be able to go and drop the kids off at school without having the looks, the stares. They want to be able to continue to work. They want to be able to go and socialize. And even some people don't want to tell the kids, or don't want it to be as shocking for the children. Kids can often associate hair loss with death, and it's these are the little bits that we can help, and we can help people to live with the diagnosis, to have some normalcy, as you guys say in the US, but for your international viewers, normality. That's and empower people. That is exactly what we're doing, and what we're proud to be able to do.
Wonderful. I was wondering, do you happen to have a sample of the cooling system, or the cap, to demonstrate to us, please?
I did, and I do, and I've just realised it's just been taken from my office, Grace. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem. But I will still go on to ask these questions. Let's imagine you have all the information at your fingertips. But how easy or difficult is it to use, considering that it must be used simultaneously while undergoing chemotherapy, because you have your infusion and everything happening, and then how is this done?
How did it work? Yeah. So what we basically have is there is two different parts to the Paxman scalp cooling system. So first of all, we have our refrigerated unit, which I couldn't really pick up and show you because it's like about the size of a bedside table, if you like.
Okay.
That's kind of the size that we're looking at. But it's a compact mobile refrigeration unit, and that rapidly cools this special liquid coolant down to its operating temperature. And then during use, this coolant is then pumped, and what we have is like these coolant lines that look a bit like elephants' trunks that come out of the system, and then that's attached to a cap, and that's the second part. So then we have these individual silicone cooling caps, and the coolant flows around some chambers in these caps and back again. So what you've got is this continual flow of coolant, which is the patient wears, or people wear, as you said, during treatment. So they wear it for a period of time before, which we call the pre-infusion cooling time. That's usually 30 minutes, unless you've got type 3-4 hair. So afro, curly,
so that depends
coily
on
hair.
the, okay, like I have afro hair, curly hair
curly
now.
hair,
So would you consider that, you consider that a type 3?
So type 3 or 4, so curly, coily, or a very thick hair, then what we do is you increase that pre-cooling time by 15 minutes. Just so, because of the thickness of the hair, we're wanting to ensure that the scalp is brought down to the optimum correct temperature before we start giving the chemotherapy. So then they wear it during the chemotherapy, and then the stage 3 is the post-infusion cooling, and that's when you wear it for a period of time after, whilst the chemotherapy is still active in your body, and just so that we can still protect those hair follicles. So the idea is it is really simple. So the idea is that the actual systems themselves, the refrigerated unit itself, is located within the chemotherapy infusion center. So if it's where you actually go and have your chemo, in your infusion chair, there will be a Paxman scalp cooler literally sat next to you. Now, depending on where you're located in the world, so for example, the majority rest of the world, they have their own caps, which they use and clean in between each patient's treatment. However, in the US, we have a different model. It's a pay-for-use model. So the actual systems are at the facility, but the cap itself, you are sized at your facility, and then you are sent your own individual cap to your home, which is yours. That's yours to keep during your treatment. And what we do is we recommend that they practice fitting the caps, and we've got really fantastic tutorial videos. And there's helpful tips on my Instagram page as well, of how to get the best cap fit. That's the crucial, integral part. But then they would take that along with them, or if you're in a different location in the rest of the world, then the nurses or the healthcare providers will actually fit your cap for you. And then it's just simple, connect to the system, and then operating the system itself, which again is really, really simple to use. So we do try and pride ourselves on the simplicity of both the machine for whoever's handling the use of that, and the caps for fitting those, again, for whoever's handling the use of those.
Amazing. So the material used, just to make sure I'm right, is silicone, right?
Yes, so there's two parts to the cap. The inner cap itself is made out of silicone, a really soft grade, so it's quite pliable cap. So to get a really good cap fit. And then over that, there's a cap cover. Now that's made out of neoprene material. So all you water sports fanatics out there will know what I'm referring to. That it's basically like wetsuit material. So the benefits of that is
like
that
a seal skin.
Like
sort of.
the wetsuit material, the stretchy material. And so what people will wear if they're doing swimming, diving, or skiing, water skiing, or anything like that. And the benefits of that are the fact that because it's made out of that material, it insulates the cap, so it ensures that no heat escapes, but also any condensation that develops, it will soak it up, so you don't get any drips on your patient or on your person. And then finally, we've got these a chin strap, and then lots of like bungee cords and a toggle, and all of this helps to make sure that that cap is a nice tight fit on the head, which is again really important.
Wonderful. And just to going back to your point, so if I had to go in now, I would have to use it like 30 minutes before chemo starts, and then also after, right? So another 30 minutes after
it's a
infusion.
It's a maximum of 90. It's 90 minutes afterwards, 90 minutes. So it's another hour and a half. So it does extend that. It does extend your stay, but you know, there's lots of things that you can do whilst you sat in your infusion chair. You know, watching a movie. Some people drop off to sleep, or there's all sorts you can do in terms of making sure that you're comfortable.
I mean, if we're going through infusion, it's like, you know, time passes. We're always nodding off to sleep.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely. And also look at that extended additional time. I know you're in a clinic, but you know, when do you often get a chance just to sit for an extra hour and a half to read a book that you've been wanting to read, or catch up on Netflix? Gosh, there's so much to watch nowadays, isn't there?
My eyes are like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, you know, rather than looking at the negative, you know, look at it as a positive to have some new time.
In fact, when you're sitting in that chair, you're already positive, because you know that you've taken one step towards your healing and recovery. So, you know, it's good for that patient. Very true. Oh, wow. This is so interesting. So regarding research and all that for your clinical trials, who else aside a cancer patient is considered a good candidate?
So with regards to scalp cooling, so we the main people for that scalp cooling is used for is cancer patients. So we sometimes, when we're in the R&D stages of a product, we might use a healthy volunteer if it's about temperature, or getting some feedback, some general usability feedback as well. But all the research and clinical data that we have on the use of Paxman is solely with patients who have cancer. As it's the chemotherapy, obviously, that we're using the device to help combat the chemotherapy-induced alopecia.
Alopecia, yes, because so many people suffer from that, you know, who are not cancer patients. I have a couple of friends, in my community, who already were suffering from this. So going in for chemo, there was nothing to lose. This is me. What else can chemo take from me? I have no hair. So,
that's a real shame. No, we can't. Because the normal alopecia, as opposed to a chemotherapy-induced alopecia, that's a different method of how and why you lose your hair. So unfortunately, we can't. It's not, the application for it can't be used there. But it's just for people who have cancer and who are having chemotherapy where hair loss occurs, and with solid tumors as well. Unfortunately, it's contraindicated to use with any blood-related cancers, and that's because of how it works. So it's solid tumor cancers, and there's certain other cancers as well which it's contraindicated, such as head and neck, because again, if you want me to explain how it works, that kind of.
Please do. Oh yes.
Yeah. So the reason that we lose hair during chemotherapy is because the chemotherapy is actually targeting a cancerous tumor, is a rapidly dividing cell, and that chemotherapy actually targets the rapidly dividing cells in your body. The only problem is that it cannot differentiate between a nasty cancerous tumor and all the healthy cells in your body. So your hair, the cells in your hair follicles are your second fastest dividing cell in the body. So 90% of the time they're in their active growth phase, which is their anagen phase. So this is why you lose your hair, because the chemotherapy targets these cells, which causes total apoptosis of the death of the cells, and therefore people lose your hair completely from the root, and that happens about 2 to 3 weeks after your first chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what we're doing is by cooling the scalp. Now we're taking it down to a temperature of this is testing my transformations now. So in Celsius, it's 18 to 22 degrees.
Okay.
In Fahrenheit, it's about 68 to 72. Okay, 68 to 72 Fahrenheit. So that's a common misconception, that people think that we're actually freezing the hair follicles and freezing your head. We're not. The coolant in the system is sub-zero, but not your head. Okay, so what we're trying to do is, first of all, is vasoconstriction. The first mechanism is vasoconstriction. So we're limiting that blood, reducing the blood vessels that go to the scalp, but reducing that blood flow down to 20 to 40%. So that means that less chemotherapeutic drug is actually getting to those hair follicles. Secondly, what we found in our lab research is that when you cool the cells in the hair follicle to this 18 to 22 degrees, the metabolic rate is reduced. So basically, they stop rapidly dividing, they slow down and sometimes lay dormant. So therefore, that means that the uptake of the chemotherapy is lessened because it's no longer a rapidly dividing cell. Yeah, there's also the consideration as well that the actual toxicity of that chemotherapy drug is lessened when it's cooled, but just in that localized area of the scalp. And there's lots of other mechanisms as well that we're constantly discovering and seeing, and within the research that we are doing. So that's why, as I mentioned, that things like head and neck cancer are contraindicated, because we don't want to have any impact on the chemotherapy getting to that tumor within the head and the neck
within those areas. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the same goes for, obviously, for any blood related cancers as well.
Cancer tumor. Yes. Oh, thank you for that. You know, the audience
bit of a science lesson.
No, I'm telling you, you know, and you see, this is why I love talking to you people. I learn every day, and so does my audience, because I have these reviews that come, oh, really? I didn't know this. I didn't know that, you know. So
excellent. Well, I'm here to educate, and I think if people know and understand how it works, then they have a better understanding. And also, you know, trying to demystify those myths as well, because sometimes it can be a choice of whether somebody wants to go try the treatment or not, because of, you know, if they think, or they've been told, misinformed, that we're freezing your head to protect those hair follicles, then that could be a little bit whoa. But if, you know, by explaining that it's that taking it down to that temperature of either 68 to 72, or depending on where you are in the world, 18 to 22. So and in terms of how comfortable it is, you know, it's that first 10 to 15 minutes that people, and I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it, because you know, some people do and can find it quite uncomfortable, but it's, you know, it's transient, it goes away, it doesn't, it's like, you know, if you've ever been in a plunge pool at the spa, or if you go in the sea and it's freezing cold.
Yes, a quick dip.
First,
and then you get
first of all, you're like, oh my goodness. But then your body acclimatizes and gets used to it, and that's what happens. But we do provide lots of tips and hints in how to, you know, how to combat that first 10 to 15 minutes. And, you know, distraction is key. So there's lots of things that we can do to ensure that people are as comfortable as possible, and having protection on your forehead as well. Putting something on your forehead is really important as well.
Because the infusion room is already cold, you understand, because of the drugs and everything. So and having that on your head as well. So I'm very happy that you were able to explain that it's not really what they think it is, you know,
Yeah.
that it ends up being comfortable. Yeah, that's great. That's absolutely great. Well, that's why we're here. Our tagline is to demystify. So I'm glad you've demystified all those myths. And yeah, I'm happy about that. So you had your FDA clearance in 2017, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So congratulations on that. You know,
Thank you. Thank you.
it's 5 years now, almost 5 years, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your facilities that offer Paxman, that where can people find them? And if they're offered in, you know, their areas of
In
residence.
their area. Yeah, absolutely. So we're now in near enough 700 facilities across.
700.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, no, we've got 700 systems. Sorry, that's to make sure I get that
Systems.
right.
Okay.
We've got around about 700 systems, and in
Mhm.
you know, up to five. I think it's about 400 facilities now,
Oh,
and that's across over 40 states. So
equally
we've got
amazing. There's
yeah.
no
So
difference
we've
between 400 and 700.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we do. There is a lot out there and we're still growing as well. But we have a wonderful website called coldcap.com, which I believe you'll be putting a link
Sure.
onto, which is wonderful. And yeah, if you go onto that, it's our patient facing website, so you can find lots of useful information on there and helpful videos, including how to fit your cap. But there is also a locator place on a site locator access on there. So if you go to that and put in your location, and then it will actually bring up all of the facilities, that have Paxman near your location. So it's a really, really handy tool. So please feel free to go and use that.
Oh, definitely. It's going to be on my show notes, and for anybody who's watching to find out if, you know, they're covered. And even if they're not covered in their area, the distance between, you know, where they live and the next location, you know, they'll be able to know. Wow, that's awesome. So with all these amazing reviews that, you know, I keep reading about and all that, what advice anyway would you give anyone pondering using this innovation? What would you tell them?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So for everybody's information in terms of how effective it is, it doesn't work for everybody, but believe me, we are working on that. So at the moment, you've got across the different ranges of types of chemotherapy, should I say. So you've got a 50% chance of retaining 50% or more of your hair. So it's really important that you understand that hair loss does still occur with this treatment, but our aim is for you to keep enough so that you can style it, or that people don't know. But one of the biggest things that I want to mention, and this is really important in terms of considering it, because even if you're having a drug that perhaps we don't have as great a success, or you have more hair loss, is to think about scalp cooling beyond hair retention. And that is because we can now, and we have clinical data to prove that your hair grows thicker and faster in a shorter period when you scalp cool and when you cold cap. And that's even when it's not been effective, so it's not worked as well. So you could have lost maybe 80–90% of your hair, but what we do is encourage people to continue, or even if you know that you're having a drug that is perhaps with the anthracyclines that perhaps we don't get as great results with, is still use scalp cooling and try it, because even if you lose a lot of hair, by continuing to scalp cooling, and by scalp cooling, you are protecting those hair follicles. And therefore, this means that, again, your hair will grow back thicker and faster. And it puts people, months ahead of what normally they would have when you don't use it. And therefore, it allows people to get back to some sort of normalcy, and helps them to build build themselves after their treatment. So
regain that confidence after
yeah,
all that.
absolutely.
That's so important. Yes.
So there's those things to remember and to consider, and as a tip of mine or advice. And the final one is your cap fitting. Cap fitting is crucial. You know, make sure that you fully educate yourself, empower yourself. It's your treatment, it's your, you know, your body, your hair, and self-advocate for yourself, you know, and make sure that you fully understand that cap fitting procedure, so that you can get the best possible outcomes. And we also have some great resources as well, as I mentioned, coldcap.com, but we also have a Facebook support group, which is a closed support group. So that's a fabulous place for people to go and join and learn and meet other people as well, going through the same as them. Absolutely. And feel supported.
Yeah, those links and tips will also be in the notes. That's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Claire.
No problem.
So, one other thing I wanted to ask was, I see that you guys have been doing so much giving back to the community with, you know, the Sue Paxman Fund. Could you tell us more about this, please? Sue was your mother's name, right?
Yeah, so Sue Paxman is my beautiful late mum. Yeah, so obviously in the US, it is currently out of pocket, although please keep your eyes peeled, because there are steps coming forward where it's starting to be covered under insurance. So yeah, so watch out for that. But in the meantime, it is out of pocket. So there are some wonderful subsidiary charities that have foundations that have set up to help people with the cost of scalp cooling. And there's many that are within the facilities or that are regional. There is also a national charity or foundation called Hair to Stay, and they provide financial assistance to people on a national basis for anyone wanting to have cold cap scalp cooling treatment. So we've got a wonderful partnership with them, and one of the things that we do in conjunction with them is we set up the Sue Paxman Fund, and this is in honour of my late mum, and this is where we offer cold cap scalp cooling treatment completely free of charge to 2 young mothers every month of the year. And so it's a brilliant way. My mum was a fantastic mum of 4. I'm one of four children. And it's, you know, it's looking and it's seeing that importance of people being able to have some normality and normalcy when they're raising your children. And so it's an absolute honour for us to be able to give back and to provide 2 mothers scalp cooling treatment totally free of charge every month.
Oh wow, that's awesome. You said Hair to Stay, right?
Hair to Stay. Yeah.
Okay. So last but not the least, having such a hectic, you know, work schedule and everything, how do you unwind, and what fun word can be used to describe you?
Oh gosh, right, wow. Let me think about the fun word whilst I explain. Yeah, so yeah, I love what I do. It's not a job. It's much more than that. But obviously, yeah, it keeps you busy. I'm also
you have to relax.
I'm also a sole parent, so I've raised my son completely by myself. He's 17, and he's my best friend. And it's so it's there's a lot going on. But I like to I love movies. I love to just sit and get lost in a series, in a box set or a movie. I like to read. I'm reading a couple of books at the moment, a novel and then also a self-help book as well. But I've also recently...
Could you share the self-help book for anybody watching?
Yeah, it's Atomic Habits. It's called Atomic Habits.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
That's
it's about
bestseller.
Yeah, improving yourself by 1% every day. It's brilliant, genius, to be honest. And then also I've recently started practicing Buddhism. So yeah, so I chant every day, and this is something that's really, really helped me as I live with borderline personality disorder, a mental health disorder. So it's really sort of helped me cope with that. But yeah, I think those are a lot of the things that I like to do. I love a bath, Grace. I love a candlelit bath.
Oh, wow, you're like me.
Yeah, that is my
Candles all
self-care.
around. Yeah.
Absolute self-care. Sit in a lovely warm bubble bath with my
Yes.
candles and with my iPad or a book.
Absolute total bliss, right? Total
Yeah,
bliss. I
total
know.
bliss. And I describe a funny word
Fun
to
word.
describe me, a fun word. Oh gosh, I'd say bonkers.
I doubt that.
Yeah, just yeah,
You're fun. You're
lively,
fun.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
I
fun.
love to make people laugh. I love to,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
there's nothing makes me happier than people enjoying themselves and smiling and laughing. It's a big important thing for me. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Wonderful to have you, Claire, honestly.
Oh,
So
thank
please
you so much.
go over your social media. I know you're on Instagram again, you're on LinkedIn with, and you have the
Yeah.
Facebook group.
Yeah, so we have
Okay.
our closed Facebook group, which is if you put in Paxman scalp cooling, you'll be able to find it. And my Instagram, which is a source of help and information. And you can see my top tips. And I just started my first Instagram live last night and I'm talking to people who have been through the treatment. So my Instagram is claire.paxman, and that's
I will tag you.
Plaire. Yeah, fabulous. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much, Grace. This has
Thank you
been
so much.
wonderful.
Before I sign you out, let me
Yeah.
sign out to the audience. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on, Claire. And I really, really appreciate your time taking your time out to come and explain everything. We're all the better for it. And you can be sure that you're going to be getting a lot of, people reaching out to find out more about the Paxman cooling system. And so, everyone, my dear audience and friends, there you have it. You've heard me have a wonderful conversation with Claire L Paxman about hair preservation while undergoing chemotherapy. And I hope you've been able to key into those very, very important nuggets. All right. So until the next episode, I say ciao, ciao. Thank you so much for coming on. God bless.